Hello, and welcome back to yet another board game channel where we will be starting yet another board game playthrough. And yes, I know everybody and his dog, as the saying goes, is doing this right now, but I also want to do a playthrough of Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition, the one that uses the app. If you have no idea what this is, Mansions of Madness is basically a mystery exploration game with a Lovecraftian theme to it. The first edition would be one person controlling the game while everybody else tried to solve the mystery, and the keeper, as the first player was called, tried to kill everybody else. For the 2nd edition, that just came out last month, they turned it into a co-op or solo game by turning the keeper into an app that you do need to play the game. Now, I'm not necessarily going to be doing a full tutorial of this. I mean, I'll explain things as we go along. Your best bet to find out how to fully play the game is probably a video recently done by Rodney Smith at Watch It Played. Assuming I can do it correctly, I will try to put a link in the video description, a description of this video, to that video, so he can tell you all the ins and outs of it. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you basically know at least how the first Mansions of Madness ran. And, yeah, we will be doing one here. I'm going to, again, like most people, going to do the first and shortest scenario, Cycle of Eternity. Full disclosure, I have already played Cycle of Eternity. However, that was with 5 of us playing. I'm going to be doing it solo here. We lost, so I'll see if I can get any further along on this one. And at that point, I didn't have all of the first edition expansions. They all can work with the new version. If you go to my collection, you can tell it if you have the first edition of the game and their expansions, and it will integrate all of the characters and whatnot through it. They'll all have tiles. You'll see those better when I start actually playing the game. Yeah, so I'm hoping that means there'll be there will always be a little bit more randomness when this game is played. Anyway, it'll randomize your starting items and that sort of thing. So it'll always play slightly differently, even if you keep doing the same story. Having said that, spoiler alert, because this is a very story-heavy game. So if you don't want to know what's going to happen until you play this on your own, probably don't want to watch too much of this. Right, so let's set up the game and get this started. I'll just quickly show you the some of the components, and we will get started. Okay, looking over the setup instructions, we'll just very quickly go over it. You've got create card decks. I have done so. We'll explain the card decks as they show up. Organize the map tiles. I do have a couple of piles of them over to the side. Organize the monsters. Again, great big box full of them. Create token pools. There's quite a lot of tokens, which you'll see in action. Yes, choose the scenario. We'll go back to the app for that just a second. Okay, going to choose. I'm just going to turn up the app a little bit so that we can hear the narration when it kicks in. Choosing a new game. There we go. So we will be going with Cycle of Eternity. The description After a rash of disappearances, your investigation brings you to the Vanderbilt Mansion during a meeting of a particular astronomical society. Can you unravel the mystery before the circle of eternity turns once more? And you can see it's a 2 out of 5 difficulty, and it should take 60 to 90 minutes, probably depending on the number of players and how well you know what you're doing. So we move on to the next step and choose investigators. If you're playing solo, you should really just be playing with 2 investigators. Otherwise, the insanity mechanic gets a little weird. So yes, I have chosen 2 characters at random from all the characters in the 2nd edition, the 1st edition, and the 2 1st edition expansions, the big ones. And we randomly got Dexter Drake the Magician. You can see he has 6 health and 8 sanity. For his special ability, once per round, when you gain a spell, you become focused. I'm sure we'll see that in action later on. We'll explain it when that turns up. Then we have all the various stats, which tend to range from 2 or 3 at the lowest up to 5 is generally the best. The usual Arkham Horror game series stats, things like strength, agility, observation, lore, influence, and will. I think agility is a new one for this. And let's look at, well, there's Dexter in his little top hat and cane. So let's just do his story. Dexter Drake returned from the Great War to become a successful magician, enthralling audiences with his elaborate illusions and cunning stage tricks. Despite his meteoric success, Dexter always longed to discover true magic. This desire soon led him to the reserved section of a dust-filled shop dedicated to obscure books. There he found a burnt and torn fragment of the Necronomicon itself. Intrigued by this ancient piece of occult knowledge, Dexter began to use his wealth in search of the truth about ancient lore, and what he found horrified him. His delving into the arcane eventually led him to a variety of investigations, where he has discovered a great evil will soon rise. That will soon rise. He knows that he may well be the only person with the ability to stop this evil from swallowing the entire world. Maybe not the only person, because he will be working alongside Mandy Thompson, the researcher. Her health and sanity stats are the same as Dexter's. Her ability, once per round, when you gain a clue, she can gain 1 additional clue. And there quickly are her stats. Then we'll go into her story so far. Since beginning her employment as a researcher for Miskatonic University, Mandy has spent hours poring over the profane pages of ancient forbidden texts. Others who have been exposed to these tomes have been immediately repulsed by the horrific images and ideas they find within. Mandy, however, objectively recorded her findings and was seemingly able to shake off the damaging effects of the books. She's a strong-willed one. She believes she has seen a pattern emerging from the various texts which indicates an impending cataclysm. She recognizes that it may simply be an imagined paranoia resulting from her reading, but she truly believes that a disaster of epic proportions is on the horizon, and that she must do everything she can to prevent it from coming to pass. And there she is. Focus. Holding what looks sort of like an X-Files type flashlight, which is a little anachronistic. Anyway, so what we do is we search for them. Oh, here was Dexter on the first page. You do need to pick at least two. Right, and the next step will be we will gain our starting items. And begin starting items by... Now, it's going to randomly, within certain parameters, I'm sure, tell us what things Drake and Mandy can start with. So see, we got the little backpack symbol on most of these items. That means it comes from the common item deck. So we will take out the bandages. You generally keep these in alphabetical order to make it easier to search for things. Bandages, equipment, as an action, discard up to 2 face-down damage. We'll see how damage works. Then discard the card. Then we have the brass knuckles. More equipment. Roll 2 additional dice while attacking unarmed. Then the Holy Cross. Just move through to H. More equipment. Roll 1 additional die while resolving a will test. And finally, the kerosene lantern, which counts as a light source. So if we're ever in darkness, we can use this to combat that darkness. You may discard this card to convert all investigation to elder signs while attacking unarmed. And we'll see how the dice rolls work very shortly. We also start with the spell Instill Bravery. There's a little stack of each spell. They all have different backs on them that you don't actually see until you use the spell. So we will just grab the top one for our investigators and see that the spell itself does do, as an action, you and another investigator within range discard 1 horror, then flip the card. As well as all that equipment, see that it says each investigator in this scenario begins with 2 clues. The clues are used for re-rolling, well, not re-rolling, converting dice. Again, we'll see that repeatedly throughout the playthrough. Now, we get to decide who gets what equipment and the spell. I'm thinking the spell obviously has to go to Dexter. He's the magic user and has 5 lore, which I'm guessing it will largely work on. Let's see, the Holy Cross, rolling extra on a will test. They both have a will of 3. Let's just give it to Mandy for now. They can trade items as an action if necessary. The brass knuckles, it adds 2 to rolling when attacking unarmed. I think I'll actually give that to Mandy because she's only got 2 strength as opposed to Dexter's 3. So she needs a little boost in that area in case she ever has to fight barehanded. The bandages, I think, yeah, let's just give that to Dexter. No particular reason, just somebody has to have it. And we'll give Mandy the kerosene lantern. So, we have done that, which means we continue the setup. Get a little loading screen with some Lovecraftian quotes on it. It's always a different quote each time. And then we begin the scenario. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment, and let me just turn the step up a bit more so you can hear the narration.
You slump into your office chair after another long day of interviews. You've been investigating the disappearances surrounding a wealthy neighborhood for 2 weeks, but you have nothing to show for it. The telephone rings. You answer and hear the panicked voice of an older man.
Is this the investigator who visited the Vanderbilt estate?
You flip through the files on your desk. William Vanderbilt, a wealthy bachelor, mother recently deceased. He has refused to meet with you, but you were able to speak to several members of his serving staff.
This is Eugene, Mr. Vanderbilt's butler. I didn't know who else to call. The police think I'm crazy. Unnatural things have started happening here. I'm worried for my master. I think he's in danger. Please, help.
Finally, a lead. You hang up the phone, throw on your coat, and leave for the Vanderbilt estate.
All right, so now we continue. Turn it back down, but leave some volume for the spooky sound effects and background music. We continue. Now, we get some narration, although this we have to read ourselves. Your car rattles up the uneven drive, pulling to a stop in front of the estate. Several cars and carriages are parked along the drive. However, the butler who contacted you is nowhere to be seen. You knock on the large oak door to no response. Fearing something has happened, you try the handle, and the door swings open into a lavish entryway. Place the lobby tile and the walls as indicated. So, we will just have a quick look for that tile. Now, I'm just going to stay focused on the app until the setup is complete. Then we'll go to the actual physical board. Then, excuse my reach, you can see it says to put a bit of wall there to indicate that that's not really a door. And then we continue. Oh, but now that that went away, I could see that there should have been another one over there. It's just the, oops, I've got them backwards. The app text was covering them up. You step into the warmth of the house. A strange stillness hangs in the air, and your footsteps echo through the quiet entrance. Place your investigator figures as indicated. So we will be putting them in that one very large space. Right, in the middle of the lobby sits a table with a small pile of papers. Place a search token as indicated, and the game comes with rather a lot of these tokens because they can build up. A table with a telephone sits at the top of the staircase on the right. So we'll put a token there. A mysterious painting of a nighttime landscape looms over the lobby staircases. Place a search token as indicated. Oh, the silence is broken by the muffled shouts and sounds of crashing pots and pans coming from the door on your left. Place an explore token as indicated. Oh, going to reach again. You notice a shelf stacked with books and other objects nearby. There we go. Pushing it in front of the door could prevent someone or something from coming through. Place a barricade as indicated. So I will put that in the right spot. 3 other doors lead into the mansion. Place explore tokens as indicated. All right, so now we enter the investigator phase. So we'll cut away from this and go to the actual physical board. All right. As you can see, the board looks very much like the layout here, with the table, the other table, and the painting, and all the ways out. Table, other table, painting, all the ways out. So now that we're in the investigator phase, each investigator gets 2 actions. They can be the same action or 2 different actions. There are a number of things you can do. Yes, the most common things are move, search, that's one of the question mark tokens, explore, that's the red lantern tokens, interact, we'll see once we find anything to interact, attack, nothing to attack yet, thank goodness, trade, picking up and dropping also counts as trading. You can occasionally, well, you can always do this, but you're very rarely going to do these things. Push action, you can push a monster or another investigator. Set a fire or steal something from another investigator. And of course, you can always do component actions, anything that's on a card that says action. All right, investigators can go in whatever order they like. So, well, let's start with, okay, Dexter is going to have a quick look at the papers on the table. What we do is go to the app, and it tells us a disheveled pile of papers sits on the table. I see that little arrow means that searching it will take one of his actions. So let's go ahead and do that. The papers stacked on the table are invitations marked with today's date. The stars have come round to their positions in the cycle of eternity. Title drop. The Vanderbilt Astronomy Association cordially invites you to a celebratory evening. Gain 1 clue, then discard the search token. So that's nice. Dexter now has a 3rd clue token, and we remove the search token. And when we continue, nothing else happens on the app. That icon just goes away. For his 2nd action, let's check out, oh yes, by the way, it's just one huge space. You can tell by the white lines dividing the room up into 3 individual spaces. And oh, and by the way, this is a different opening room than I got the one other time I played it. So things are already different than the first time I played it. Hopefully I'll actually win this time. Anyway, Dexter is going to examine this door. So let's, or explore rather. So going to the app, we drag over and choose. A ruckus can be heard on the other side of this door. Shouting, the crash of pots and pans, and is that hissing? One thing to note is that you can actually choose any of the icons at any of the token icons at any time, just to see a little description of them, and then not do anything. You can just cancel, and just looking at these things without doing anything with them is a free action. So you can get maybe an idea of what sort of things are around and you might want to look through. Anyway, we will go ahead and explore. The door swings open to reveal a dining room in chaos. An aging man in a tailcoat scrambles through a serving window into the kitchen as he tries to escape a strange, black creature writhing on the dining room table. Discard this Explore token and place the dining room tile and a wall as indicated. Right, so we're going to get rid of that. And I'm going to have a quick look for the dining room. There it is. Move that over a bit so it's in camera. And we also need... Sorry, I keep reaching across the camera. Shouldn't do that. So that is not actually a door. I can just read to you what's coming up and put the appropriate things on the board. The creature turns to face you. Its black serpentine body shifts and changes, playing tricks on your eyes as you try to focus on it. The creature unfurls its leathery wings and unleashes a blood-curdling screech. Spawn a haunting horror as indicated, then suffer 2 horror, and now we're going to have our first roll. Will negate. Right, here it is. The haunting horror. On the back, it points out that it is a focusing flying monster. Means it can move through impassable borders. We do have one impassable border here. You see, the solid yellow line just indicates an open doorway between 2 rooms on a tile. The dotted yellow line means that normally you cannot actually pass through there. It's a smaller space, like a window. In this case, it's probably the little window that the terrified butler crawled through. However, it does count for line of sight if you were to, say, be trying to shoot something or cast a spell on something in the adjacent space. So, we can't, but it can. Anyway, the haunting horror. Oh, let's do the flavor text on this. Black and ropey and relentless. The creature flies swiftly, always seeking its quarry. I'm not sure if that's focusing, sorry. There we go. Its ever-changing form is hard to see for mortal eyes. And these numbers, the 3 here, the 6 and the 5, will come into play eventually. I can pretty much guarantee it. Right. So, Dexter, having opened the door and seeing this thing, takes 2 horror. However, his will can negate it. So what we do is we roll a number of these special dice equal to his will, which happens to be 3. We'll see what they are, and actually I think I can just put it down there. Wow. That was a complete and utter failure. The Elder Sign would be a success. The investigation token, or symbol, the investigation symbol, we would be able to spend a clue to turn it into a success. However, if it's on the blank side, it's just a fail. And Dexter, way to go, rolled 3 complete failures, which means he's going to suffer both horror. So, we grab the horror deck. This one here with the nifty little symbol, the brain, and the outline of a human's head. Now, sometimes you will draw these face down and not get affected by them right away. If it doesn't say that, in this case it does not say that, he suffers the effects right away. Panic. You scream, leaping desperately away, and tumble to the ground. Dexter. I thought you could handle this sort of thing. Resolve immediately. Suffer 1 additional, or in this case just 1, face down damage. Then flip this card face down. So he gets 1 horror damage, and he gets 1 physical damage. But it's face down, so we don't have to do what it says. Of course, we don't know what's under there. And the second one, Horrific Arcana. You whimper as your mind rejects the impossible. This must be a really terrible thing. Resolve immediately. Suffer 1 additional face-down horror for each spell you have. Of course, he has a spell. So he gets 1 more, but it is face down. And all of his damage is face down damage, which is good. It means there's no lingering effects from it. However, might as well talk about what happens if an investigator takes damage equal to their health. They get rid of all the damage cards and gain a wounded condition, which means they cannot move twice in 1 turn. So it's not the worst thing. However, if they then take a further 6 damage, once that's all been cleared, that investigator dies, and unless we solve the mystery by the end of that round, we lose. Similar for sanity, if, in this case, Dexter takes 8 horror sanity damage, we then get rid of all those cards, and he gains an insanity condition, which is going to be different every time, and you keep secret from the other players. Obviously, that's not going to be an issue with just 1 player. But then, if they suffer another 8 sanity damage, the investigator is defeated, and yes, if we don't solve by the end of that round, we just lose. So, he's already got 3 horror. That's just great. Way to go, Dex. Anyway, we're not quite finished yet. In the center of the dining table, a carving knife sits embedded in a roast. Place the knife common item as indicated. An investigator can pick up an item in his space as part of the trade action. It's a bit of a tutorial at that point. So we will find, oops, not the King James Bible, but the knife, which is a bladed weapon. It says so there. It's also melee, which means you need to be in the same space as what you're attacking. Just flavor text. It can cut many things, including monsters. Oh, let's hope so. Anyway, it is actually in the same space as the Haunting Horror, just sitting on the table there. A china cabinet stands against the wall, though it looks to have been repurposed to store all manner of knickknacks. Sorry about that. That would be email coming in. So we put a search token there. You can see a kitchen through the serving window. Most of the cabinets are ajar due to the food preparation, but one that has been locked shut with a chain catches your attention. So, excuse me again. Place a search token as indicated. In the kitchen, you can also see that someone has left the refrigerator open. Oh, for shame. Oops. Water leaks out into a puddle on the floor. Place another search token. Finally, you spot the old man you saw climbing through the serving window, huddling in the corner behind the oven. And who can blame him? I mean, if this thing scared Dexter that much, what's it going to do to a regular person? Sweat beads off his brow and his eyes bulge in terror. Place a person token. As indicated, this is Eugene the butler, and in fact they confirm that on the back. Eugene Clemens, in fact. So he is cowering in this corner. you may move one space into the explored area, and that will count as part of this action, part of the explore action. So, do we really want to do that? Well, I think I'm probably going to have Mandy come in on her turn and possibly deal with it. We could also barricade, but that's not really going to help us solve the mystery, is it? So yeah, go ahead, Dexter. Go in, and that'll be Dex's turn, and now over to Mandy. Alright, Mandy's not having any of this. So for her first action, I'm going to have her move in here. If she were to continue moving, she would have to evade the monster, but that's not what we're going to do. Instead, Mandy is going to attack with those brass knuckles. She's going to just punch this bastard. So, what we do is we go down to those little tentacles. That is what's called the monster drawer. It keeps track of every monster currently in the game. So what we do is we choose that monster, the hunting horror, which has 5 health total. And we are going to attack it, and we tell it how we are going to attack. Now we are going to attack unarmed, but we'll get an extra 2 dice because of the brass knuckles. Except that's not what it's going to do. See, it's always unpredictable. It will generate some kind of test. It might not always be the test you expect. With empty hands and the beast looming over you, you struggle to work up the courage to attack. An equal measure of bravery and insanity fuels your attack, and you lash out at the creature. So, we just need to succeed at a will check. And her will is 3. Let's see if she can roll 3 dice better than Dexter does. There we go. So we got a single success and an investigation token. Looking at it, you can see that the monster will suffer damage equal to the test result. So we're going to have Mandy spend one of her clue tokens to turn this into a success, because that means we get to do 1/2 damage against the hunting horror. And we continue. Then we exit. That is it for our turns. Those are 2 actions for each. So what we're going to do is push the little arrow button, which will end the investigation phase and move into the mythos phase. Right, confirm just in case you press it accidentally. Now, we get events. More or less randomly, although it will amp up as the game goes on. It'll get harder and harder. The air suddenly grows stale. This mythos event affects each investigator in the dining room. That would be everybody. Resolve. Bracing your hands on your knees, you gasp for breath. Everybody tests their strength, and you need 2 successes to pass. This could be bad for Mandy, because the brass knuckles are not going to help. Well, let's do Dexter first. His strength is 3. And see, we got 1 success, 1 failure, and 1 investigation. So yes, let's just have Dexter pass. If you pass, cool air fills your chest, and you continue with determination. We'll see if the same thing happens with Mandy with her 2 dice. No. And she can't even change it because we got an elder sign and a complete failure. If you fail, your struggle for breath becomes more violent and the blackness edges in. Become dazed. Okay, let's grab a dazed condition. Reposition there a little bit. Right, so Mandy is now dazed. So she cannot spend clues to convert dice results or perform additional puzzle steps. We don't have any puzzles yet. At the end of your turn, discard this card. At least it is only temporary, but it means her clues are now completely useless. So, we will continue on. A hunting horror moves 3 spaces toward the investigator within range with the lowest sanity. Then it attacks that investigator. Within range is 3 spaces. I was doing this wrong when I played it the first time. It wouldn't have been an issue here. I'll explain how I got it wrong when it comes up. Yeah, within range is 3 spaces, not counting through doors or obviously walls. However, it's on the same space as us, so it's going to attack whoever has the least sanity, and yes, that would be Dex with his 5. So you can choose that there are no investigators within that range, in which case it'll move, probably. But in this case, the monster attacks. The beast stalks into the shadows, then circles around to attack from the rear. Suffer 2 face-down damage, although we can negate it by rolling our observation -1. Oh, his observation is 3, which means we're only rolling 2. Come on, Dex. Ha ha! Total success. If you suffer 1 or more damage, it didn't happen. Let's move on. Now, everybody has to do a horror check against anything that's within range, and these are certainly within range. So we tell it what we're trying to not freak out from. Resolve a horror check. Confirm. And it's the same horror check for everybody within range. They'll be doing the same test. Black ichor runs over the monster's teeth, pooling on the ground beneath it as it tastes the air. Blech. Test will, and we need a success of 2 to pass the horror check. Alright, Dexter, with his 3. Come on, Dex. Okay, you got 1 success, 1 failure, and an investigation token. He is definitely, as he's taken enough horror as it is, spend 1 of his clue tokens, leaving him with 1 and 2 successes. If you pass, you remain still and calm. Now, Mandy also has a will of 3. Because she's dazed, she cannot use her clue token to convert anything, but it doesn't matter because she rolled 3 successes. Yay, Mandy. So that will, she will also remain still and calm. So, we're done that. So we end the Mythos phase. Back to the Investigator phase for the next turn. And I think we'll just leave it at that. This has probably gone on fairly long. As it is, future turns will probably be shorter because I won't be explaining every little thing and there won't be any setup. Yeah, so we will leave it there and we will see you next time. Thanks everybody for subscribing and liking and all the comments I'm getting. It's all very nice. And we will see you next time.